Hello everyone, it's Amy Williams here with the You Perform channel. I've got Charlie Unwin here again. Now last week you told us all about you and the background to you. What is it that you want our viewers and our subscribers to understand and learn about the content that we're all going to be listening to?
Yeah, I'm really excited about being able to share so much over the upcoming weeks, months, as long as we can really. And there's kind of exercises in there, there's techniques, but I suppose fundamentally what I want people to get from this is everyone's got goals, everyone's got things that they want to achieve. Those goals will change in our lifetime, and you know, our goals will change from one thing to another. The thing that will stay constant for all of us is our minds, is what goes on in there. So I suppose I really want people to know and understand their mind, because the more we work on that, it stays with us forever. And so the mission really for me is to help people make their mind the greatest tool that they have.
I guess that's the thing. We're so used to thinking about performance and it just being your body. It's a physical thing, rather than a mental thing that's going on in your head. Yeah,
I mean, how often do you sprint as fast as you can and jump onto I'm not allowed to call it a tea tray, but a
skeleton sled.
Exactly. That stuff's kind of, in the nicest way, irrelevant to you now, but the things you learnt from that exist in there will stay with you forever, and how you present yourself and manage your own emotions, thoughts, focus and all of that, you'll have that for life.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, even now I go about a daily life, still using the lessons I learned as an athlete, performing as an athlete, just going into daily life of, you know, preparing the kids' bags and like, right, if it doesn't work, plan A, I've got plan B, plan C, I've learned this from an athlete.
And we're going to find out more about that as well.
Yeah. So Charlie, tell us what you're referring to as the performance inside.
Yeah, the performance inside is my central philosophy and approach. Where it comes from is we have an inside performance. That's what goes on inside us. So predominantly what's going on in our head, our thoughts, our feelings, what we're focusing on, physiologically in our body as well. And then there's the outside performance, which is the thing we're trying to do, the thing we're trying to get better at or compete at. And I think it's easy for people to define success by what they do on the outside, by what other people see of them. So we're always aware of what other people are seeing and what the outside world is defining as successful. So it could be, you know, making a putt as a golfer. It could be getting your first serve in as a tennis player. The thing is, if we want to be good at what we do in the outside world, we need consistency, right? So it's all very well being able to do a first serve. Being able to do it every time is really the measure of success. But we cannot build consistency in the outside if we don't build consistency in the inside. If we're having different thoughts every time we take that serve or take that putt, if we're feeling differently because we can't manage or we're not even aware of what's going on inside us, then we're going to generate inconsistency on the outside. So for me, the really key message here is if we want to be consistent on the outside, we have to be highly consistent on the inside.
I guess that comes down to thinking of that athlete again, although obviously all these techniques are for people in everyday life, in situations and jobs and work, but the athlete, you always think, oh, I've got a major competition coming up, or I've got world championships, Olympic games, I better use a sports psychologist. And I think people only really use someone when they suddenly think, oh, there's a big competition, big under pressure, quickly, let's get someone in to help, rather than, like you're saying it, doing it every single day as part of your real training.
It's so true, isn't it? It's so true. I mean, I think that's the beauty of probably the system you found yourself in, because it was kind of given to you a lot more. So you didn't have to do it off your own back thinking, right, now there's a problem, so I need to address it. Rather, we were able to be much more proactive in our style. And you're absolutely right. I mean, for me, training our internal performance is what it's all about, because we don't want to arrive at Olympic Games and be doing things for the first time or using coping mechanisms for the first time. But out of interest, how does that sort of concept sound to you? How do you relate to this idea of there being this sort of outside performance and then there's being this inside performance?
Yeah, I guess as an athlete, I never sort of thought about it in those two different sort of ways and terms. But for me, consistency was key. In our sport, you had to put down consistent runs down that skeleton sled. And you weren't going to win a race if you did one amazing fast run and one not so good. You had to be the one that was every day, always the same. So I would always prepare my training, my sled, the way I thought about going down the ice track, training to competition. I didn't think about it any differently.
Yeah.
So it was a very, I would warm up the same way.
Yeah.
Just about. I would do some special extra things on competition day, but everything I would do in preparation to how I packed my bag, what breakfast I ate, what I did when I arrived at the top of the ice track would be the same whether that was a training day or a race day, because I knew the consistency was the most important thing.
Which is great, because in the next week we're going to be talking more about creating predictability and certainty. So, there's a lot of uncertainty in sport, not least your competitors. So it would be great to have that chat about how we create more predictability and therefore confidence in what we do.
And I guess all of this can help everyone in just daily life, in jobs, whether you've got a high stress situation in jobs or daily life, whether you're a busy working mum or dad and you're trying to juggle everything, just having that peace and calm that you can cope in a situation or a scenario because you've practiced it, you've rehearsed it, nothing will then come as a surprise.
Absolutely. And that awareness is key, actually knowing that we are under stress, knowing that I'm not breathing properly, I'm breathing shallow, I'm breathing like that. A lot of people don't even realise they're doing it. You open an email, what do? We hold our breath. If you don't know that, try it, have a go. Open your emails, and because we're anticipating. So we hold our breath. So we're not even aware of the inner performance. We're not even aware of how the regulation of what's going inside is then affecting the way we think, which then affects how we communicate, what we know, what we do, the precision of what we do. And of course, in sport, that could be the difference between, hitting a putt long or getting it into the hole. So we've got a lot to explore there. I suppose the other thing I'd love just to say, Amy, is that I think a lot of people, like you say, get into psychology when it comes to the big championships, and because people feel that pressure. And there's a great analogy that I remember I was taught as an athlete, which is really dear to me now in the work that I do with other athletes. And I call it walking the pavement. So imagine that you're walking along the edge of a pavement, and you're just putting one foot in front of the other. And you could do that all day because it's not that difficult, right? Unless your balance is really bad. Now imagine at the edge of that pavement, it wasn't 3 inches, it was 3 miles. So you're kind of walking along a sheer cliff face. Just think for a second how that would change the way that you behave. I don't know about you, but I'd probably either be frozen to the spots, or if I was walking, I'd be doing this. You're almost sort of doubting yourself. So what's changed? Fundamentally, it's not your ability to walk. You've been walking all your life. Practicing walking is not going to get you any better at being able to walk along that pavement. Instead, it's what's going on internally, being able to recognise and manage that. And I think taking that analogy into real life, what is that drop for most people? That drop is fear of failure, fear of looking stupid, pressure that other people might put on you, pressure to keep your funding in professional sports. But it could also be because you've got millions of people watching you. It could be because if you're a special forces soldier, it's a life or death situation. So there are lots of reasons why that drop expands. And the problem is we cannot take that away. We have to be comfortable with that. And in doing so, almost comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it there, isn't it? It's knowing before something happens, before that job interview, before going into some high pressure situation, it is going to feel uncomfortable. But you know what? I'm prepared and I'm already anticipating that I might feel uncomfortable, but I have coping mechanisms to keep myself calm, the deep breathing or whatever it might be to keep that focus.
Absolutely. And we'll explore what they all are.
So if we know we're going to be in these high stress situations that come up in our daily lives, what is it then that you're saying that we can do every day to almost then train ourselves to become better?
Well, I think actually that's exactly the point. And intuitively, you know it because you've been there and done that. But this isn't about our ability to cope in that moment. This is about how we train our mind, how we adapt our psychophysiology, our response to those moments. And I guess, the really key message is everyone can get better at this. I think a lot of athletes think that I come in and I'm going to give them coping mechanisms. I'm either going to help take the pressure away from them, or I'm just going to give them stuff that allows them to cope in that moment. But the problem is no one's ever going to perform at their best when they're coping. And in the same way that in business, no one's ever going to be creative when they're coping, when they're surviving. So there are so many things we have to put in place on a day-to-day basis that allow us to train that to happen. And in a way, I kind of think, athletes they're training hard in order to physically adapt. So we're putting our muscles under stress in order that those muscles adapt and therefore become stronger. It's exactly the same with the mind. If we don't get used to inoculating ourselves with little bits of controlled, non-forced stress and being able to make positive sense of it and get better at it, then we can't expect to be better at it when we need to be.
Yeah, true. So what other sort of aspects of daily performances are we talking about that we can be doing? Yeah,
because there's so much stuff outside of this. In fact, I've written a few things down. These are just things that I've done in the last few months with various athletes. Identity is a big thing. And this is something we would work on continuously with someone. Being able to feel like you belong in that arena is such a cool thing. And it's so easy, I think, for people to get lost or feel like they don't belong there for whatever reason. And the higher up you go up the levels, I'm sure you must have felt it at some point, but you get to the next level, and it's easy to question, do I belong here? And not only that, but do I believe that I am that person who can achieve that? Yeah. So that's kind of identity stuff. If we get into the sort of deeper psychology. But then there's other stuff. There's stuff like adherence to new behaviours. So nutritionists, I'm sure they were constantly trying to get you to adopt new behaviours. You've got to eat this, you've got to do this, you've got to stretch, you've got to do that new technique. So we're having to break and create new habits all the time. And so very often I'm working with other sports scientists to help create new habits in people that are going to kind of accelerate them beyond their opposition. So that's important. Accelerated learning, we almost touch on it there, but our attitudes to learning, how clearly we set goals up front that gives us that focus when we're actually trying to execute a task or skill. But then also how we analyse our performance, memory as well. We get to the bottom of the skeleton track, and you've been going around corners at 5G or whatever, it is. And if you look up and think, what just happened there? You've almost lost that ability to make sense and therefore learn. So we're trying to improve people's recall as well. That's linked to focus, refocus, training flow states, being able to help you to be able to get into the right state of mind, to not think about it too much. And routines, self-belief and confidence, overcoming injury. There are loads. You get the idea. But these are all things that we can explore over time.
It's fascinating stuff, eh? So much to do.
Look forward to it.
Well, another fascinating insight into your kind of approach to everything, Charlie. What are we going to be talking about next week? What can we expect?
Yeah, next week we're going to look in a bit more detail at that idea of the performance inside, but we're going to make it a lot more practical. So we're going to look at some exercises and techniques that build your awareness of what's going on here, and also start to get better at training that. And we're going to be using you as a bit of a guinea pig as well.
Whoa, well, it's been Charlie Unwin and Amy Williams here for the You Perform channel. Thanks for joining us again. Please subscribe, click on the bell, and we will see you next week.